engineers. So for your concept sketching assignment 6.1, you're going to be sketching your prototype. And each person in your team is going to be sketching the prototype, but you're going to be doing it from a different viewpoint. So for example, this is one of the Green 2 team's design. They made a little catapult. And so you can have somebody sketching it from the front, somebody sketching it from the side, and then you could even have somebody do an isometric view, but that's probably a little bit too intense for right now since we just learned how to do isometric views. Instead, what you could do, because this has motion, pull this back, and then somebody could sketch the prototype. This is a little tough to pull back, but you could sketch the prototype. Another person can sketch it when it's actually pulled back and prepping for a launch from the front and from the side as well. So I did a couple examples for you guys. So you can see this is my student 1 example. They are sketching from the front before loading so that this thing is up in the air. I know this kind of looks like an eyeball. I was trying to sketch like depth in the pipe, and I think I maybe should have done circular shading in here instead of the straight shading so that it would look like it's a round, deep, well inside of the end of that pipe, inside of that cap. But I want you to also notice here how I have shaded each of the different components a little bit differently. I've done like thicker cross-hatching in the middle here, and then lighter cross-hatching on this part, and then that thicker again on these ends. And having the different weighted cross-hatching on components that are right next to each other helps to differentiate between those parts. It makes it easier to see all together how the pieces are coming together. Here's a second example. So this is the right view, the right side view of the object. And you can see that I've done some of that cross-hatching again to try to differentiate between the parts. Without doing that, it can be really hard to tell where one part starts and the next part, or where one part ends and the next part starts. Then here is example 3. You can see I didn't take as much time on this one. This is less of a quality example. But what I did try to do here was maintain quality on shape and proportion, but there's very little in terms of shading and any detail to make this one look more realistic. I haven't done any of that cross-hatching, and so down here, it's kind of hard to tell where the empty space is and where the actual boards are. So having, in this example, where I've actually shaded that in, you can tell that there's a gap between this plate and then where this crossbar is, and it's harder to tell when those things aren't shaded in this example. And then my final example, I spent the least amount of time on, and that is a side view in that launched right after loading position. So you can see that that's pointed down. So generally, shape, I tried to make shape and proportion relatively decent in this one. It's still not great. And there's definitely very little detail. So this would be an example of somebody not trying very hard in this one. Because really, honestly, I think I just took a couple of minutes to do this. This may have taken me like 3 minutes. Whereas my first 2 examples, this one took me quite a bit longer. This probably took a good, 15 minutes to really make it look nice. And this one too, like I spent some time and I didn't always do it properly. If you look really close, you'll see that there's a lot of erase marks on these. I had to fix where the lines were going to make sure that they were going the correct distance and try to get that proportion right. I was erasing things and kind of filling in to make sure that, where parts were being crossed, like especially down here, I had to like draw this part that comes down first, and then I extended these lines out and tried to make sure I was overlapping things the way that you actually see them on the real model. So do try to create a sketch that is a realistic representation of what you have before you. And remember, it's okay for it to not look real, but we want to try to get it to be more realistic. So you're trying to take your time and to do your best work on these. Thanks.